More airlines are announcing today they will suspend flights over the eastern Ukrainian airspace where flight MH-17 went down. The Federal Aviation Administration issued a warning in April of this year banning flights from the airspace over Crimea and the Black Sea, but there are still a lot of questions about why commercial aircrafts were still flying over this eastern Ukraine region. Here with more analysis is airline expert and bizjournals.com travel columnist Joe Brancatelli. Joe, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
So give me a rundown. How are airlines responding to this tragedy today?
Well, if you follow their Twitter feeds this morning, my time, I'm in Hong Kong this afternoon in the U.S., they've all now said they will not fly anywhere over the eastern Ukraine. The European agency in charge of the European carriers have already officially made that off limits. The problem has been it looks a little late. It looks like the horse has already left the barn and we've lost one, and that's a terrible tragedy. And
we're just showing you a list there of the airlines that we do know that are suspending flights. Airlines like Air France, Lufthansa, Transaero, Turkish Airlines, British Airways, nearly every airline at this point, or every airline that we know of at this point that says they're suspending air service over there. So we now have it confirmed, Joe, from U.S. intelligence officials that this was a missile that brought down this plane. Do you think commercial airlines had any idea that this was coming, had any idea that this was even a risk for them?
Well, let's go to the important thing. The simple thing that you've shown how many airlines fly over the Ukraine indicates how busy this route is. This is a main Europe to Asia route. You overfly the Ukraine because it's been perceived of, by the way, as safer than going over Russian airspace, where the Russians have been particularly prickly over the years. The problem with whether anyone expected that, I think all of us, both sitting on the ground and pilots and airlines that look at this for a matter of safety and doing their runs, we did not perceive the action going on in the Ukraine as this kind of opportunity. We were thinking, small arms, a little local conflict, brush fire. There really wasn't a lot of thought given by most officials about bringing in these kind of weaponry. You cannot take this down, a commercial aircraft with a shoulder-fired missile even, at 33,000 feet. So I don't think the airlines were expecting this.
And even the FAA, when it issued its warning, it didn't extend its warning as far into eastern Ukraine as where that plane went down near Donetsk. They changed that guidance today, obviously, in the wake of this terrible crash. Does it surprise you at all, though, that, we're talking about an area that's 30 miles from the border here, an area that we knew there was contentious fighting going on. You just think people didn't realize that there was that kind of weapons capability?
I think it's partially that. Now, I was in Hong Kong earlier this week looking at how Cathay Pacific pilots actually plot their flights. And when I was in their control center, as they were preparing for something that seems much more benign now, the typhoon that's hit Southeast Asia, you saw the pilots and the first officers hours before their flights going over routes, vectors, how they'd fly around it, how they'd fly past it or safely by it. Pilots take this stuff very seriously because they're responsible, not just the airline. A pilot is personally responsible. Now, some pilots have been concerned, but most that I've talked to just simply didn't think this kind of ground activity rose to the level of the situation where somebody could be having the kind of missile systems or would be willing to use the missile systems that could take a plane down.
And of course, we're talking about a kind of tragedy like this. We're not just talking about the passengers who can perish in something like this. We're also talking about the pilot and the crew. It's really a risk to everyone on board. Joe, thanks for taking the time to fit us in.
Anytime. Thank you.